Let me tell you about a guy named Marcus. 24 years old, just got a decent job, and he does what every finance YouTuber told him to do. He opens a brokerage account, dumps $2,000 into some trending stock he saw on social media, and feels like a genius for about 3 weeks. Then the stock drops 30%. He panics, sells at a loss, and swears off investing for 2 years. Here's the thing though, Marcus's mistake wasn't picking a bad stock. His mistake happened way before that. He skipped a step. A boring, unglamorous, nobody talks about it on Instagram step that would have saved him from that entire disaster. And that's what this video is about. Before you invest your first dollar, there is one thing you need to do. Not a stock to buy, not an app to download. One specific action that determines whether investing actually builds your wealth or quietly wrecks your financial life. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly what it is and exactly how to do it this week. Why this matters right now. Here's why I'm making this video. There's a huge wave of new investors right now, especially younger ones, who are getting into the market for the first time. Investing apps have made it stupidly easy. You can open an account in 5 minutes and buy stock with your lunch money. And that's great. Access to investing used to be a privilege. Now it's basically a button on your phone, but easy access created a new problem. People are investing before they're actually ready to invest. Not ready in terms of knowledge necessarily, ready in terms of their financial foundation. They see a friend post about crypto gains or a video about some hot stock, and they jump in without asking a very basic question. Should I even be investing right now? That question sounds simple, but almost nobody asks it. And skipping it is exactly why so many new investors end up scared off, burned, or worse, in debt while trying to build wealth at the same time. It's like trying to fill a bucket that has a hole in the bottom. Doesn't matter how much water you pour in, it's still gonna drain out. The one thing you need to do first. So what is this one thing? It's building what's called an emergency fund. I know. You've probably heard this term before, and maybe your eyes are already glazing over. But stay with me, because most people misunderstand what this actually does for them. And once you get it, investing will make so much more sense. An emergency fund is simply cash, sitting somewhere safe and easy to access that covers your basic expenses for 3 to 6 months if your income suddenly stopped. Rent, groceries, insurance, minimum debt payments, not vacations, not new phones, just survival money. Now here's why this has to come before investing. And this is the part people miss. Investing only works well when you give it time. The stock market has historically returned around 7 to 10% a year on average, but that average hides a lot of chaos underneath it. In any given year, the market can be up 20% or down 30%. The only reason long-term investors come out ahead is because they stay invested through the ugly years and let the good years average things out over time. But what happens if you don't have an emergency fund and your car breaks down, or you lose your job, or you get a surprise medical bill? You're forced to pull money out of your investments. And if that happens during a downturn, which is exactly when emergencies tend to pile up because the economy is struggling, you're forced to sell at a loss. You lock in the damage instead of riding it out. So an emergency fund isn't separate from investing. It's actually what protects your investing. It's the shock absorber that keeps you from having to touch your long-term money when short-term life happens. Let me show you why this matters with real numbers. Let's say you invest $1,000 in an index fund and the market drops 20% in year one, which has genuinely happened multiple times in the last few decades. Your $1,000 is now $800. That feels terrible, but on paper, you haven't actually lost anything yet. It's only a real loss if you sell. Historically, the market has recovered from every single downturn eventually, sometimes within a year, sometimes taking a few years for the deeper crashes. If you leave that money alone, it typically not only recovers, but grows well beyond where it started. But if you have no emergency fund and your water heater dies and costs you $600 to replace, and that's the same month the market just dropped, you're now forced to sell those investments while they're down. You just turn a temporary paper loss into a permanent real one. That's the entire game right there. Time is what makes investing work, and an emergency fund is what buys you time. So what does this mean for you, practically? Let's build the actual plan. This is the part you can use starting today. Step 1, figure out your bare minimum monthly expenses. Not your current lifestyle spending, your survival number, rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, transportation, minimum debt payments. Add those up. Step 2, multiply that number by 3 if you have stable income, like a steady job and no dependents, or by 6 if your income is less predictable, like if you're self-employed, work on commission, or support other people financially. Step 3, open a separate savings account for this money. Not your checking account, not your investing app, a separate account. So you're not tempted to blend it with spending money or see it sitting there and think, oh, I'll just borrow from this real quick. Ideally, put it somewhere it earns a little interest, like a high yield savings account, since those often pay meaningfully more than a typical checking account while still letting you pull the money out anytime you need it. Step 4, automate a transfer into that account every payday. Even a small amount, $50, $100, whatever you can actually sustain. Consistency matters way more than speed here. Step 5, and this is the mental shift. Treat hitting that emergency fund number as your first real financial milestone, not your first stock purchase. This is the finish line before the next race even starts. Once that fund is fully built, that's your green light. That's when you invest your first dollar with actual peace of mind, because you know a flat tire or a slow month at work isn't going to force you to sell your investments in a panic. The traps people fall into. Now let's talk about where people mess this up, because there are a few very human, very understandable traps here. Trap 1, impatience. Building an emergency fund feels boring compared to investing. There's no exciting stock chart, no app notification telling you your money grew today. It's just a number slowly climbing in a savings account. Because of that, a lot of people rush through it or skip it entirely because investing feels more fun. But boring and effective often go together in personal finance. The flashy stuff is usually where people get hurt. Trap 2, treating the emergency fund like found money. This one's sneaky. People build up $3,000 in their emergency fund, and then a really good vacation deal comes up, or a friend's wedding, or a sale on something they've wanted for a while. And they think, well, I have the cash sitting right there. That fund only works if it stays untouched for actual emergencies. A vacation is not an emergency, no matter how much you convince yourself it is. Trap 3, going too big before starting to invest. Some people get so obsessed with the emergency fund that they build up 8, 10, 12 months of expenses in cash and keep delaying investing altogether. Remember, cash sitting in a savings account, even a good one, is basically guaranteed to lose value to inflation over time. Once you hit that 3 to 6 month range, stop adding extra and start investing. Don't let caution become its own trap. Trap 4, and this is the one that got Marcus. Investing with money that isn't actually free to invest. If losing that money would mean you can't pay rent next month, that money should never have been in the market in the first place. Let's walk through a realistic example. Let's go back to Marcus, but let's rewind and give him a better path. Instead of jumping straight into that trending stock, Marcus sits down and calculates his bare minimum expenses. Rent, food, phone bill, insurance, transportation. It comes out to about $1,800 a month. Since his job is stable, he aims for 3 months, which is $5,400. He opens a separate high yield savings account and automates $150 every payday. It's not exciting. Some months it feels painfully slow. But after about 9 months, he hits his $5,400 target. Now, Marcus starts investing, putting money regularly into a broad index fund instead of chasing hot stocks. 6 months later, his car needs an unexpected repair costing $700. Old Marcus would have had to sell investments or put it on a credit card. New Marcus just pulls from his emergency fund, pays it, and moves on with his week. His investments never get touched. They keep compounding, untouched, uninterrupted, doing exactly what they're supposed to do over the years ahead. That's the entire difference between someone who invests and gets wrecked by the first surprise expense and someone who invests and actually builds real wealth over the next 20 or 30 years. It's not about being smarter or picking better stocks. It's about sequencing. Foundation first, growth second. The takeaway. So here's what I want you to walk away with. Investing isn't dangerous because the stock market is scary. Investing becomes dangerous when you don't have a financial cushion underneath it. The emergency fund isn't the exciting part of your money story, but it's the part that makes every other chapter possible. It's what lets you stay invested through the scary headlines, the market crashes, and the unexpected life expenses without ever being forced to sell at exactly the wrong time. Before you open that investing app and buy your first share of anything, ask yourself honestly, do I have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved separately, in cash, ready to go? If the answer is no, that's your actual first investment. Not a stock, not a fund, a cushion. Build that first. And everything you do in the market after that will be so much more powerful because you'll actually be able to stay in the game long enough to win it. If this helped you see investing a little differently, do me a favor and hit like on this video. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this before they make the same mistake Marcus did. And if you're serious about building real financial habits, step by step, subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel is here for. I'll see you in the next one.